Do houses for rent affect apartment demand for rent? Well, this is a question that comes up a lot, and it depends on how you view it. So I'm going to give you a couple reasons why it does and why it does not. So if you are looking to rent property, anybody would most of the time prefer to rent a house, right? It has a lot of advantages. So renting an apartment limits a lot of people, and there are some families that cannot rent a house. So I'll give you an example. If you have more than 2 or 3 dogs or animals, a lot of times apartments will not allow that. So you're almost forced to go to a house. When you're dealing with a house, you're dealing usually with a landlord. He's got one property. A lot of exceptions can be made. Here's the disadvantage. What's happening now, it's always been like this, but you'll see it more now because people are having more animals, more stuff, accumulating more things. If you have an apartment, more than likely it's a property management company. Now I'm talking about a 100, 200 unit apartment building. They don't cut too many exceptions in my experience. It's kind of, this is our rule. If you like it, great. If you don't, this is the way it is. So what they'll do is they'll charge you a pet fee for every pet, right? So they'll say something like maybe, I don't know, a couple $100 for every cat you have. But the limit is maybe 2 dogs or 2 cats or whatever that is. So that's kind of the deterrent. That can always hurt your typical renter. Now, here's what I think could happen. It hasn't happened just yet, but it could happen. So if you have 100 units in an apartment building, more than likely, the person that's going to rent a house over your property, maybe they'll want more privacy, more space, something along those lines. The average busy worker that can afford the apartment would prefer a nicer unit, no headache. The property manager is probably going to take care of everything, and it's a lot more updated in all aspects most of the time. Now you're always going to be limited, right? Your parking is probably not going to be garage parking, and it's something along those lines. And you'll probably have to share a lot of things. Where I have seen the biggest issue is laundry. The newer apartment buildings have laundry, so that's not really a problem. The older stuff in the 70s, maybe 60s, there is no laundry. They have to share one downstairs or in the hall, wherever they place it. That's going to be a make or break for a couple of people. Not your majority. Most people do wash once a week, so it's not the end of the world. It just kind of depends on that sense. Now, if you're competing with a couple of different apartment buildings, there's only so much you guys can do. If you're renting a 2-bedroom unit for, let's say it's $1,200, and you're inching rents up a little bit, $1,300, $1,400, what's going to happen is, more than likely, they're all using the same income factors, right? What did you make the last couple of years, or pay stubs, or some kind of income verification, and what's your credit like? The house that's owned by an individual, again, can make those exceptions. Hey, you know what? You don't make 3 times what the rent is. We can kind of do some things here. So it's a give or take. What's going to happen eventually is, as more and more people are buying apartments now, there's a flood of apartments everywhere. You know that. They're building them. There's a lot of them. Well, rents are on a rise. And it hasn't happened just yet, but more and more people eventually, let's say they lose their jobs. Now, I'm not saying everyone's going to lose their jobs. I'm just saying if they did lose their jobs, those people may not be able to afford $1,500 a month in rent. So they're going to look for the best deal, because a renter has a renter's mentality. They don't care about ownership. They want to rent, and they want to get the best deal. $100 is a lot of money in their world. It really is. So if you're renting your 2-bedroom for $1,500 and someone else is $1,400, guaranteed they're going to leave. Next year, when you're bumping your rent up, they're out of there. The issue comes in apartments, it's very hard to make money if you keep turning over those tenants. You got to keep these guys long as possible. Now, the biggest competition you're going to have are not other apartment buildings. It's really going to be more houses. So right now, the newer product is kind of sought after, whereas more than likely, if you're renting a house, it's not going to be completely updated. So can this be a problem? Yes, I don't see it happening anytime soon though. It's gonna probably kick in certain areas, maybe for certain people, but the large majority of people are gonna rent an apartment, more than likely. So it can cause competition, but there's only a few factors where the person renting a house, you're probably not gonna convert them into an apartment. There's just some things that he needs, or he may have an RV, an apartment building may not work for him. So you're really only looking for a certain crowd. What's gonna happen is when they're looking for something, everybody does this when they're looking at apartments, what's the best deal I can find? Or what's closest to my job? If you have an apartment building that's 3 hours away from everything, it's gonna be very tough to fill it up. That's why if you notice, most of the time, everybody talks about, well, what's the job growth? What's the job market? It's not that these guys are geniuses. This is the fact. If your building is away from everything, no one's gonna rent there. You have to be strategically placed next to the grocery store, right? Next to a fitness spot, a Starbucks. You have to be around everything. These people do not want to drive a half hour every time they want to do something. So a lot goes into this. Now, that's not really going to be much of a problem, because if there's too many apartment buildings in the area, the only way they can really compete is just drop their prices down, because more than likely 2 new buildings are going to have the same amenities. Maybe one will have like a cool dog park, some like a swimming pool. You might have a few nuances, but it's not going to be anything major. So that's what you want to kind of keep an eye out for. What can your apartment offer? If you can add more things in there, great. If you can't, don't try to overdo it. If you can add laundry, that's usually a little costly, but you'll definitely increase rents and you'll have renters longer. So really don't try to take that renter that's renting a house. Just focus on the marketplace that you can and what you can offer. That's all I got for you today. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. Leave me a comment or questions if you have anything. I'd love to read them and reach back out to you. Thank you so much for watching.